Oh, right. So if you haven't watched already, there's a video on how to set good habits. This is not exactly a series, but both of these videos, this and the how to be more efficient video, they have been inspired based off of like what people could be thinking about for New Year's resolutions, because it is 2024, at least at the time of the recording. I don't know if you're watching this in like, I don't know, June. But in general, I wanted to make these two videos because people have told me these are my superpowers, or these are the things that I do really well in, if I stick to it. So this particular video is on how to be more efficient. So I think a lot of people in my circle, they keep thinking, oh, Christine loves to be more efficient. She's an optimizer. She always tries to find to make things easier and faster. And I think I really do in a lot of ways, but the one I want to use as my case study is Rover cat sitting. So just to kind of give you some background, I have cats, 3 cats particularly. One is actually a foster fail, and she's actually the reason why I ended up doing cat sitting in the first place, is because if I adopted another foster fail, I will have 4 cats and Addison will kill me. So with being more efficient, however, it started off with cat sitting, and for me particularly, it was kind of like a win-win, because with me, if I were to get another foster cat, I will adopt, but if I cat sit, the cat will stay home, or not mine at least, but that was honestly the main reason. And it was also like another motivation to get Addison to say yes to having more cats at home, because if I were to foster fail, I'm gonna want the cat, but if I were to cat sit and he gets money out of it, that's great too. So when it comes to this being more efficient, it all started off with cat sitting. Started off as more like a hobby. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna take care of other people's cats for fun, and then the money came second. This is still true to this day, but it's like money is definitely a motivation to be able to be and more efficient and more like disciplined in this, because now it's not just a hobby, it's an actual side business. Just to give you some context, 2023 we made up to $50,000 in Rover cat sitting. That is not an easy feat on top of 2 day jobs. Addison works at Accenture, I work at Google. It is not easy to do that on top of YouTube, which is what you're clearly watching. So I want to talk about how to be more efficient. In our case, how can we do this on top of our day jobs, but also how do we make sure we're not burnt out? Okay, I will tell you there are times we are physically burnt out because we literally are running around the city. But in this case, there's a lot of different ways that you can be more efficient. This can be on every single thing possible. Let's say, for example, how to speed up your morning routine, how to run more efficiently, how to do work more efficiently, how to do anything possibly efficiently. For me personally, I'm just gonna tell you what has helped me be more efficient. It may or may not help you. I'm just saying that because I wanted to make sure that it will give you ideas, but it may or may not work with you. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. I'm just telling you this is what worked with me. And I'm going to use Rover cat sitting as an actual kind of a guidepost, because how do you actually take care of all these cats while still maintaining your work-life balance with everything else? So I want to be able to talk about that because it's not an easy feat on top of like these demanding jobs. So the very first thing is figure out your strengths and lean in. In my opinion, I feel like I'm a very business-minded person and very client-focused. So naturally, I always know like, okay, what is the client? Who is the client, I guess in this case? It is the human. What does the human want? Because at the end of the day, the human's the one that's paying the bills, you know? The cat is also like a client, but at the end of the day, it's the human that's actually booking it and actually doing it. So I had thought about what would the client actually want in this case? Well, and then I was actually providing all that information on my profile. I made sure whenever we do a meet and greet that I followed everything that I myself, if I were a client to a pet sitting client, what would I want? So that's my strength, is actually being client focused and being very user focused in that kind of way. And honestly, it's because I'm a consultant, I'm at Google as a solutions architect. This is really like in my bones of how do I focus into the user and how do I focus on the client? How do I kind of like read their brain a little bit preemptively? Like answer those questions, because I already know the types of questions I get. Honestly, this YouTube channel is a really good example of one, because I get all these questions from my students from BU that like kept on asking me about tech consulting, and then also a lot of people that messaged me, and I kept a list of them basically to make videos off of. And when it comes to this, I do the same thing when it comes to Rover clients as well. What are questions that they ask, and then how do I actually get them so I can answer them preemptively? So that's what I ended up doing. Honestly, a lot of things that I think about, my life is more efficient in terms of YouTube channel, cat sitting, even my work job as well. So I would say figure out your strengths and lean into it. Try to actually figure out what you can do in that area. In my case, it was actually answering a lot of the misconceptions that my clients had and put it like front and center in my profile, but also answering the questions before they have the questions, because they don't know they have those questions until you provide that answer. So I do that in a meet and greet. I actually copy and paste it as well. So I have like a little spiel that I copy and paste when I write to clients when they first reach out, and then I also have like a system down as well of like, okay, when they're dropping off their cat, what do I say? What kind of stuff do they need to bring? All of that is kind of figured out over time. It's something that like once you figure out and you kind of, and this is actually going to lead to one of them, is test and implement, test and implement. This is like a very consulting thing. But for me, this was really key because I tested many different things. I've never done a cat sitting business before. I've never done this before at all. I've always worked in jobs, and then I've had like YouTube as my like go-to, but that back then, YouTube was just me. And then now cat sitting is like, well, now there's multiple parties. I'm working with Addison. I'm working with the clients. I'm working with the clients' cats. There's just a lot more factors in general. So you have to kind of just be on your toes. And that's what I end up doing is test and implement. If I don't know, if this doesn't work out, I figure out what else I could do, test it. I'm never the type of person that says, I'm not gonna try it out. Unless it like really does not make sense to try it out, I'm not gonna try it out. So one of the things that I've done is like, I go out there, I've realized like other people don't take photos of their own space. I take photos of my space, and I put it as like one of the top 2 photos in my profile. So I was like, okay, maybe people will see that and realize it's a cat oasis. And I've done that, and it actually has helped. I can't confirm that it's helped. I just know people know like, oh, I like the place that you have. And I also have a system as well, like, okay, I'm gonna do a meet and greet, show them a little tour, talk about like all the misconceptions, what we can do to help them, all that kind of stuff, ask their questions. Even when it comes to this, I actually have a whole questionnaire. Like Addison and I always have this issue where when we're taking notes, we don't take the same notes. So what I ended up doing, this is a test and implement, was I actually wrote a list of questions to be asking so we don't forget to ask these questions, but at the same time we don't forget about these answers as well, because we take notes on it instead of just like, what did they say again? So this was a test. I actually this was before a meet and greet. I just wrote all of these things down, tried to think about what we had. Every single time we do a meet and greet, I actually have a question that we added or changed or something like that. Test and implement. And then Addison does it. He takes notes, he saves it on his phone. We have all the information. So it's really nice because a lot of times we have so many cats that we kind of forget. Everything kind of blends in together as to what people are supposed to be doing with what cats. And we have it all in notes now. So that's what we actually have, test and implement. It is really nice because when you think about what are the bottlenecks, what are the issues that you have, and that actually is like one of the points I have is outsource and solve root causes you find are bottlenecks. In my case, I outsourced it to a survey. It's good because if our issues is that we're not keeping consistent with what we're trying to get from the client, it's like an intake form essentially, but we're asking about it in person, and we have it in a sheet, or specifically it's like actually in like an iPhone note. That's we're outsourcing it to a sheet that we created together. And then we also realized that is the bottleneck. Like when they first land here and they're like, so what's the meal again? And then we have it in a sheet instead. We have it all on paper. The other thing is like when we have multiple cats boarding, we're kind of forgetting like, okay, where's where? And I've actually I ended up getting like boxes to put food, and we have partitions for each cat or each household. That also has helped a lot. It helps out. It's basically really, really good because we used to have this all in our kitchen counter, and every cat would kind of just sniff it and try to bite it. So we put in these boxes, which is great because we can say, okay, this is for this client, this is for that client, but at the same time, it's like away from the cat's nibbling. So again, test and implement. You never know. The better you do things, the more you kind of think about it, the more you'll find improvements. And that actually leads to the next one that we have, which is even when you're optimized, when you think you're optimized, seek ways to improve, even if it's one little thing, step by step. The box was one, a survey was another. Like, yes, we can rely on our experience to ask the right questions, but I don't want to rely on things to chance. So I'm going to improve my chances by actually doing this. Even if it's not something that needs to be optimized, it ended up being really helpful. And again, test and implement. If it doesn't work out, you don't have to do it. But I always say like do things 2 to 3 times before you say no. First time could be like maybe you didn't do it the right way. way. Second time around, you're getting the hang of it. Third time around, you can kind of say like, okay, did it confirm that it's actually helping me? If it's actually adding more time or it's adding a lot more effort for you, then maybe rethink things. But I would do it multiple times. That's why I honestly feel like a lot of times whenever people are trying to do something and he's like, it doesn't work out, and then they just kind of quit, I'm like, don't do that. Keep trying like 2 to 3 times and then do it, okay? Unless you know it's blatantly incorrect. Like, let's say like a test that says like yes or no, like that's obvious. So, like, clearly you can't just keep on saying yes and see if it does anything different. But I'm talking about more of these things where there's an open-ended kind of result. Let's say, for example, the questionnaire. Maybe Addison didn't open the questionnaire in time. Or maybe we actually skipped the whole section because we didn't see that section. Or maybe we accidentally deleted a note. There's a lot of things that can happen. But once you've tried it with clients like 3 times and you feel like, okay, I think these are all the questions, and you make sure you test it in progress as well. In our case, like, we want to make sure these are actually good care instructions. So we go through a whole stay and say, okay, does this actually help us? A lot of times it really does help us, and it's good that we have them in notes because the next time around when the same cat comes, we have that note. We don't have to redo the whole thing, like, what is it? And we also can always ask them as well, like, okay, did anything change? And we have the notes from last time. So I personally really like setting systems, and when you're doing that, test and implement, and make sure you try multiple times and try to figure out ways to optimize things. The other thing is lump up similar activities together. And this actually is related to like drop-in visits, particularly because we do workday. We have like our own day jobs. We have like a 9 to 5. Sometimes it's actually like more like a 6 to 5, 6 to 7 for Addison. But for me, like there's 3 times that we do drop-ins, at least on work days. And it's like the first thing in the morning before I go to the subway to go to the office, or lunchtime when I'm working from home, or dinner time, or like work, well, not dinner time, more like after work when both of us are done with work. We go out, we do all our things, we come back, and then that's when we're done for the day. I don't like to kind of like go out, come back, go out, come back. It's just not that efficient. You're like wasting time or walking. But at the same time, it's great because you can do it all at the same time, get it all over with so you don't forget about it, and then you come back and then you can just kind of tune off. At least for me, that's what happens. But when it comes to like, let's say for example, how to be more efficient with work, you can do the same thing. Maybe put all your calls together, read all your emails together, do head down work together. Like there's so many things you can do to be more efficient if you lump up similar activities. Likewise for YouTube. For me, when it comes to YouTube, I actually content batch a lot of times. So I do it all in one day. You can kind of see if you look at my videos, like for some of the videos, you'll clearly see the same freaking photo, the same clothing that I'm wearing in the thumbnails and in the videos. You'll know I content batched. Or I'm just wearing the same kind of clothes multiple times. So that's what I mean by lumping up similar activities, because then it doesn't take you time to kind of wind down and get back up. You're just already there. You're on the go already. That's why when people run errands, they do it all at the same time. They do it all together because they're already out there. They're already feeling productive. So that's what I would do instead of just like breaking it up and coming back, breaking it up, coming back. It just breaks the flow, in my opinion. So after that, you can say, this is the part that is interesting, because don't forget you can ask and research what others are doing. In my opinion, I feel like we are leaders in the cat sitting business on Rover, because everyone else is like a dog sitter, or that they have like a whole system in general for dogs. They don't have for cats, because we have all the stuff you possibly need for cats. So if you go to like a dog sitter for cat stuff, you're gonna have to bring the litter box, the cat tree, all that kind of stuff. We already have that. But what I always like to do though is we actually are in a Rover sitter group, and the same thing can happen to many different areas. Like let's say you're doing fitness and you want to make sure you meet a benchmark, you can join like a fitness group as well and ask for advice. For me, I always ask, I don't ask advice, I ask how do other people do things. In my case, like let's say for example, how do you guys deal with meet and greets? Or how do you guys, like what kind of questions you ask in meet and greets? How do you guys exactly decline a client? There's so many ways. I would always leave it open-ended and have it for you to decide which one actually makes sense or not. I would never say, I want advice. Tell me what you would want, because then people are going to tell you and then they're going to be like, oh, you should do this. I'm like, but that doesn't necessarily work for you. So again, this is actually about like find your strengths and lean in, but also outsource what you don't do well in. If you think they're talking to you about a particular strength you know you're good at, then probably ignore that one, because if you're really good at that already, you can learn to improve on it, but I wouldn't say redo it because it just works for you. However, it's an area that you are not that good in, then you should probably improve on that. So let's say, for example, customer service is not your best suit. Then you would probably ask questions in that Facebook group or whatever forum, or like, let's say Reddit. You can use that to ask those questions or search up those questions of like, how have you done decline to client, or how have you like asked clients on like what, or the other thing that I end up asking around is like, when you have a private client, how do you do payment? Do you take like a down payment? Do you take a full payment beforehand, or do you not take any payment until the end? There's a lot of different things that you can do. So that's what I would say. Don't be afraid to ask around, even if you think you're the most efficient, because chances are there's a lot of different ways other people are doing it. You just haven't thought about it yet. That's why I always think it's always try to be interesting to try to optimize something that you may not think is optimized, but there's chances are there's ways to be optimized. Lastly, this is the one that if this is something related to working with other people, maybe it would be good to ask them what makes them efficient. So when it comes to cat sitting, I work with my husband Addison, and I always ask him like, okay, what times make a good time for drop-in visits? Maybe he really doesn't like mornings, so what we can do instead is like, I'll do mornings, he'll do evenings, and I work with him instead. Likewise, you can do the same thing at work as well. Like maybe someone says, oh, I don't like having calls in the morning. I like doing calls in the afternoon. If they are a very important person that you work with every single day and you notice that like they're not as efficient in the morning, then maybe you should do your calls in the afternoon. It does mean that like, if you think about it this way, let's say you are more efficient in the morning, but this person's more efficient in the afternoon. How much of that person does that actually matter? Does that person make up like 90% of your work or time and effort? Like maybe this person is the one that's giving you all the feedback, or maybe this person is the one that's actually like giving you the work that you're supposed to be doing, or this person is the person that you work with every single day. It could be more efficient for you to actually just work with that person in the afternoon if you are flexible. Try it out. Try like 1 to 2 days, 2 to 3 days, see how that works, and then go back to your schedule. The other thing could be maybe someone actually is really good at coffee chats, but they don't like to be in a meeting room. You can test that out as well, see how they are. Another thing could be like maybe changing the meeting room, or maybe changing the time, or when it comes to being more efficient, maybe changing the time of day honestly is like a really good one, because like let's say you're not that efficient when it comes to going to the gym on mornings, but your personal trainer is, because they have a lot of gaps, then maybe you might want to try that instead. See what works for them, because then if they're like in the morning and they're like really tired and frazzled, then you're not getting their best self, so you're not gonna work that well with them. Likewise, you can do the same thing about students. If you're a teacher of some sort, like swimming, or you're trying to teach them a lesson in violin kind of thing, figure out like what works for them. Is it like weekends, is it weekdays, all that kind of stuff. But likewise, I would say when it comes to working with other people, you don't have to do everything they say, but just try to see what works with you and what you can compromise, because at the end of the day, if both of you are efficient, then you're all efficient. Likewise, if you're efficient and they're not efficient, you may or may not be the most efficient, but likewise at the same time, if they're efficient and you're not, you got to work something out. So if this means like do everything through email, do everything through ping, like see what their communication style is, vice versa, what's their scheduling time, what's their schedule, because I know some people that like, oh, I have like to pick up my kid at 3 o'clock every single day. Then I know like, okay, I'm not going to schedule that time because I know they're going to be on the go. They can't be giving their full attention to me. So I know to avoid that. Likewise, I also have some colleagues that are in California. So I know like, okay, 1 o'clock, that's the first thing I'll ask. So it's top of mind, versus like first thing in the morning where they come to open their laptop and they get a lot of messages and emails. So think about it that way. There's a lot of different things you can be efficient. Let me know what you do. I think like Rover is a really good kind of example, because I do a day job, but I also do Rover on the side as well. So there's a lot of different ways I have to be efficient to do my job and to reach 50K in revenue, because that's no easy feat working with someone, specifically your partner, because there's a lot of ways that you have to work with them, but at the same time work what's best for you. So hopefully that helps. Let me know down below, like, what have you actually done to be more efficient? What have you actually taken away? What are you trying to make more efficient? Is it your workout schedule, your cooking schedule, or not even just like, I think like a lot of times people think about time, but sometimes it could be about habits as well. Like for example, how to be more efficient in your learning for, I don't know, a foreign language. You could do Duolingo every single day. Check the video out on how to set good habits, because that's what I talked about in Duolingo. But maybe you want to do like a talking session every single Saturday. and that's how you can be more efficient in your learning. So let me know down below what you were trying to do to make more efficient. Clearly, when you clicked on this video, you're trying to make something more efficient. But I'm also curious as well, like which tips are you going to do today? Because there's a lot of tips that you can do. A lot of these honestly are like over time. But I would say the first thing you can do first is like really think about like joining those feedback groups. I know you might be like a lone wolf, or you feel like, oh, I'm not going to listen to anyone's feedback. I'm going to do what works for me. But it's really helpful to just figure out what other people are doing. You don't have to ask. You could just be lingering. I did that in like when I was getting married. I was looking into like all the brides chats. I knew what I was doing, but I wanted to get inspiration or see it as well. It's really good because when you surround yourself with those kind of people or those kind of content, you're naturally going to think about how to be more efficient or how to do this more. Likewise, you can say the same thing about like if you're on social media and all you see is like luxury handbags and jewelry, you're probably going to want to buy them. So if you want to be less efficient, do that. But if you want to be more efficient, you may even want to unfollow or leave those groups. So honestly, let me know what you think down below. See you guys next time. Bye.